Check. 1, 2. Check sound. 1, 2.
mention them, so that we can build, a world healthy, environmentally healthy nation. So I will pose my first question to nation. So, you see, from my campaign, I'll say the industry is here. All right. Okay. Finally, the facilitator is here, so I will have to. Amara, you can have your seat. So, and now that I have the mic, you will have to stand for 45 minutes. So we just got a beautiful intro, and I was going to throw the first question from the gender perspective, because I overheard the women almost protesting to say, look, as we tackle environment in Nigeria, Ibiba Don Pedro has been writing about, Niger Delta, has been an activist herself. What is the way forward in integrating, women more, and even address women-specific issues? I'll hand over your mic back to you.
Thank you for holding space for me. My apologies for joining late, but normally when you are a host to so many events happening at the same time, sometimes this will happen. But it's a pleasure to be here. Now, this is a very good question you've actually asked about the role of gender, but also the importance of gender. And I think just to put a bit more context to it, we are in the place where there is a lot of agitation for more seats for women, in the National Assembly. But also, I think my question really in this issue is what decision, what power comes with the recognition of gender in this area. And I wouldn't do the cliche thing by asking the women on the panel to first of all answer. So I would ask Professor Zacharis to be the first to answer.
But what I wanted to say quickly, and I'm saying this also quickly, that for the environmental crisis and stressors we suffer, particularly in Africa, we are supposed to be the ones framing the prospects and seeking for the answers. If we allow others to frame the question and to seek for the answers, we are not only going to be the the type of mess being in terms of religion. Basi is a pastor. I'm going to surprise him here. But the divine question was framed for us by the Europeans. So they gave us their own God, who suddenly became above our own gods. And today we discover that, at least in Africa, religion is not helping us. Because what we can do with our hands and our brains, we want to do with fasting, and we want to do with prayers. A people's understanding of the problem helps them to grapple with it. For those of you who have read history, particularly global history, when the Europeans first went to the Incas, for example, in South America, there were a very small group of people, very dirty. They were coming from the high seas, from Europe, would not get back for months. By the time they came, they were smelly. They were certainly not as neat as the Incas. But something happened. The Incas thought that the Europeans were gods. They thought the Europeans were gods. And they related to them as gods. And before they knew what was happening, they fucked them up. What I'm trying to say is that unless we reframe the environmental challenge in Africa and get our people to understand this challenge, it's not going to work. And that is why the work that Homer is doing is extremely important. It's extremely important. There's a lot of local knowledge, and I'm trying to round up now so that other people can speak. There's a lot of local knowledge on what is happening to our environment, to our ecology, to the species around us. But we've forgotten this. We are going to seek for what the Europeans are telling us is happening. That's the first point. The second point is that all of the environmental challenges we have today on this earth, they are in the preview of the multi-trillion dollar industry. People are benefiting from the rape of the environment. People are benefiting from it. And it's big money. It's huge money. People are benefiting from it. So our people need to realize that certainly some of the solutions these people are also providing are solutions that will benefit them and not benefit us. Our people should also realize that although we are different from each other, although human beings will be different from animals, although human beings will be different from plants, although human beings will be different from the soil, we are just different. We are not separate. That means that what happens to us happens to every other thing that is on earth. And then we have to also realize, to have a global view of what is happening. The people with local knowledge may not know that we have 5 oceans on earth. And they may not also know that these 5 oceans have about 70% of the space on earth. They may not also know that what happens in one ocean is capable of affecting what is happening in other oceans and what is happening on the land itself. So I think the first thing to do, and I urge Basi and people who are in interested in the environment to ensure a good understanding of what is happening. Because government knows only money. So if they are exploring the
photos.
and they are giving them money, they don't care. Government knows that if you dig the ground and get minerals, you will get money. And they are interested in money. People must know that yes, if these people are interested in money, they are actually putting money over and above the interest of the people, the interest of the plants, the interest of the animals, and the interest of the earth. So I think sensitization is very important. And we must stay with it as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I mean, one of the things I fear the most when I come across these events that Organimo convenes is the professors that are on the panel. The last time that I moderated a panel with a professor on it, I stopped eating apples because he told us the history and the problems with the apples that we are eating. I don't know who remembers that. And since that day to today, I haven't eaten one single apple. So I'm very afraid. But thank you that you did not talk about apple or remove anything from my diet. But you did make a very important point about how grounding our approach and appreciating knowledge, and that there is value in our own indigenous knowledge and indigenous approach and understanding to these things. And I think this speaks to the debates that we are having globally about the properly positioning Western knowledge in the context of climate, that Western knowledge is just one out of all the knowledges that can contribute to climate action. And it's important that you've made that point, not in the way a professor usually does it, but in a way that people would understand. Now, His Royal Majesty, the next question will have to do with bedding this in our traditional institutions and our traditional governance systems. Because we assume, usually, when we talk about these things, that there is a void of governance at the grassroots. But that's not true. You represent an institution that governs at the grassroots. So how do we address these challenges, these peculiar challenges to Nigeria: pollution, ocean encroachment, erosion and flooding? How does the policy and the practice of addressing these things emanate and can be produced and governed by our traditional institutions?
Thank you. I was surprised to be called to speak. And they placed a professor on my right. I don't know to speak when a professor has spoken. And when Kappa, the executive director, gave the introduction of people of 2 decades in environment and climate action, I was looking for a way to rescue myself. There is no way. I am a village man burdened with leadership responsibility. I can only speak of what I see and I observe. And I have followed the conversation today, and I see that more attention is being given to hearing from the local people. And I think that is good, and I think it will really help. Because from our understanding and experience, even normal projects that government bring to our area when we ask them for the design of project they want to execute and they give to us, we tell them this will not work in this environment. They shut us down that we are not experts. They ask for our engineering certification. If we belong to any organization or institute or whatever, that they register in Abuja, we tell them we don't have. But based on our knowledge of living in this environment, this is the kind of structure or the kind of thing you can do that can work. And if you continue to argue with them, you just report back to the government that the community is hostile. Before you know it, you start sharing the money. So we don't argue with the one who pays the piper. But speak. We must continue to speak. It's not as if the traditional institutions are not speaking. Politics is playing politics with the traditional institutions of Nigeria. The traditional institutions of Nigeria really need rescue. Right from the time they gave power to the governors that rigged the election to come and rule for 4 years. They gave them power to, is it appoint or the truth? And 1,000-old institution that has sequence of protocol of selection and election. This man will come, rule for 4 years and destabilize, remove his enemies, his perceived enemies, enthrone his friends, even when they don't know anything about tradition. So the traditional institutions have been caged. Very rare. If you invite most traditional institutions and they see that in this kind of place they are coming to speak against government, they will tell you they have engagements somewhere else or they call in sick. It's only a few. I don't know if I am among now. I want to speak if I am among because I am here. Because I am here. Who still can get their voice to speak. And it is from this faith and encouragement that I will be speaking. The problem we have in my area is what I can talk about. I am not a global person. I am a frontline community experiencing flooding. We experience flooding. We experience sea incursion on the road, and we experience pollution. If I start with pollution, our local observation tells us, we observe that pollution is related to sea rise and sea turbulence. The worst sea turbulence we have in the Niger Delta part of Ondo State, which Ayetoro falls within, happens in February, April, and September of every year. That's the most violent that destroy houses and rise as high as 6 feet above the normal sea level. It will slam heavily against buildings and it will drag everything to the sea, and it happens at night. So the traditional institution like myself, we give our own local warning to our people. It is February again, though. You know what happens around this time last year. People begin to prepare. Take away your valuables, take away women and children from the frontline buildings that will be most likely impacted. You need to shift inwards. We do that. The American community is a theocratic community, whereby the head of the church is also the administrative head of the community. because it was established as a community, the practice community. So the church is the forum which in our we use to make those announcements. Whatever we want to do in the community, it is through the church we make the announcement. Till now, from 1947 to date, you will be surprised that it is only one church and one leader that is still controlling the community. So we are fortunate. And it's not like that in most other communities. So many other communities are polarized. But our problem is not organization or leadership. It's just this environment problem. So we notice that in this February, when we see the first rain, a lot of refuse, I'm not taking time, I don't want to explain, a lot of refuse from other communities that are upland, when we fall, it will drag them into the river, because in our area, that's what they call it, our big rivers, small rivers connect to big rivers, the big rivers empty into the sea. So we notice that once that first rain comes, and a lot of refuse, nylon and so many other things enter the sea will start rising and to become very violent. Our forefathers told us that the sea will always reject whatever that is not its own. That's an adage and it's a normal thing that we all know. And we also observe that if a boat mishap or anything happened and somebody falls into the sea and dies, within 10 kilometers radius of where that dead body is, the sea will rise violently for 3 or 4 days until that dead body is pushed to the shore. That is when it will calm down. This I can confidently say I have observed it more than 50 times. If the sea rises in our area and it is not the season for it, we know that there is a dead body. Within a few days, we will hear the announcement they have found the body. The professors and the scientists, you can go to work. I am a traditional institution and I'm asked to bring our local knowledge to the international attention. So pollution is related to sea level, to ocean surge,
Yes.
to higher wave. And higher wave will bring about flooding and erosion. It is when the wave is higher, that is when it slams against our mud. The geology of our place is mud, so it's easy for the sea to grab and just take chunks away. Then flooding. Flooding happens, it's happening right now. Flooding happens July, August, there won't be much rain. But in our area, there is no rain in August, but there will be more flooding. That's why I'm here to tell you what is actually happening based on our observation and local experience. Then we realize that, thank God, the director from Yoma, he knows, he taught us that ocean and the sea difference. But at that conference, I knew it. So, August we won't have rain, but there will be more flood. We notice that there won't be rain. This wire here now is there. There is no water in front of it. You come back 30 minutes, there is water above the wire. We start wondering what is happening. The elders will say, Omi Oki. That is water from the uplands. Yes. Water always look for lower lands, try to locate other water. So all the rain that is falling or even beyond or will blow. If you decide you can get other places, maybe not water that will flow to. All the water from the whole of that area, or Odo, all the water will be looking for sea where they want to empty into. So during August, there will be so much flooding without rain. So we don't need rain to experience flooding in our area, and it is rain. But the difference is that the color of the water will be different from the color of water we have in our area. The color of water we have in our area is like green mixed with something. But this water that comes when we have northern flooding, we call it northern flooding. The one of the sea, we call it southern flooding, is black. And we observe that it is water that has interacted with trees. That is the juice of the trees that mix with those water that flood our area. So, when this flooding is taking place and it's also bringing a lot of debris from the upland, that will cause the disaster of September, which is usually very serious. So, they are all interrelated. And as traditional institutions, we measure water using wood. This year now, we will go under our house. The day we have the highest, as we're having the highest either sea level or northern flood, we mark it. So we know the highest level. So when we want to build new houses, the carpenters will have to go there and identify the highest level and build higher than the highest level. Let me not take too much of your time there. So now our pollution, our sea water has mixed with the river water now, and the sea water is more than the river water. It has chased away all the river fishes. You no longer find them. You have to go as far as 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers before you can find any river fish. And majorly, it's the river fish that are women. Women don't go to sea because of the violence of the wave. The boat is always hitting you like this. So there's no woman that goes that will have their tummy, their womb not shifted. So majorly is the river. Is it for you?
Please, Your Royal Majesty, continue.
So the women use the river. They fish from the river. Do you know that the river fishes, most of the sea fish you find in the river, you find the same type in the sea. The sea fishes will be bigger than the river fishes. The river fishes taste better. These are traditional local knowledge. They say that they bring. So we have lost everything. The people no longer can catch any fish, and you know what that means. The feeding, apart from what they can sell to make ends meet, as they have lost a source of livelihood, their source of survival. The only fish you can find in my area now, the whole of that Niger Delta area now, is tilapia. And it is this stubborn tilapia that does not grow. It is Erychromis mozambicus. Yes, I'm talking to the president. It is Erychromis mozambicus. That is, it has its origin from Mozambique. It does not grow big. The ones that are growing big, they don't like salt water. Erychromis niloticus, that is the big one that comes from the Rwanda. Those ones don't like salt water. They have run away. Gymnacus niloticus. Gymnacus niloticus is the Egalson. You know Egalson? Those ones don't like salt water. Anything beyond 3%, they run away. There's another one. Agada is what we call it. It's niloticus is the name too.
Yes.
That one too does not like salt water. I tried farming that one in a concrete pond. Little water came at night and mixed with the pond. They all died.
Yes.
So we don't have any river. And because the sea water has polluted our river, you cannot use it to wash. No soap. No soap can cope the salt water. The softness of our water. And it's not just pure water. The water is mixed with more because of the violence of the sea. So we have water everywhere. But our water, we cannot his clothes. So people in the north are envying us and all that. Why people can give us this water so that and we are envying them that we have too much water. If they can give us more drought. This is the beauty of Nigeria if it is well managed. Seriously, it's the beauty of Nigeria. Some places are dry, some places are wet. But as wet as our own is, like the poet said, water everywhere.
Not a drop.
We cannot use our water for anything. And the fishes that we are supposed to use it for, they are not. And even the fish we used to get in the sea, because sea erosion is only scraping the surface. I don't know if it's past ahead of our land. It's not really digging deep. And the shallower a sea shoreline is, the more violent the wave. This is not scientific, but this is our knowledge. So, dredging our shoreline can also serve as a way of protecting our community. We have seen it at work. If wave is coming, it gets to a portion that is deep, it will die. It will die there. It's local knowledge. It's not So, even in the sea, if you do not go 40 fathoms, we do not see fish to catch in there. 40 fathoms, I don't know, yes, I said. That is how we measure when you go deep in the sea, we don't measure the flat distance. We measure the depth. So you go very deep there, we measure the depth. I think the fathom is about 6 feet.
6 feet, yeah.
So if you don't go as far as 40 fathoms, if anything happens to a small boat, capsize at 40 fathoms, you know what happens. So we don't even see fish to catch. Crayfish is what is saving us now. If you need crayfish, we have in our community.
From the ocean.
So that is just what I will say for now.
I mean, I don't know what next to say, but I will just say that, first of all, I think the professors here should gather together and accredit you with something, because the knowledge you shared Your Royal Majesty, you also demonstrated that our indigenous knowledge has value in two ways. The first is that it helps explain what we experience in a way that we understand. So it has value to us, because when you see the sea behave in a certain way, you can understand it as something is happening, and you know what to expect. So it prepares you for something. The second thing that you did, which I would love to appreciate, is the fact that you were able to connect what you are saying to also mainstream scientific knowledge. Even though you said this is not science, but the way you were talking about Mozambicus, Linoticus, and all of those things, it demonstrates a certain level of depth that what is being described also has scientific basis. It is not a fabric, it's not fiction. And a point that you made, which I think I want to emphasize to the audience, is the impact on women. That's something I have learned that, I didn't really realize that the loss of freshwater fish impacts mostly women, livelihoods, and also nutrition. Now, so that leads me to Florence, who I'm going to ask the next question. Tough job to follow His Royal Majesty, but I would like you to address the ethics of care. Because when we talk about these things, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about flood, when we talk about erosion and so on, it's very easy for us to be abstract, for us to abstract the conversation to something that sounds very neutral. But we know that these things are not neutral on the ground. These have to do with humans, And they also have to do with non-human services, like, the nanotokos that we're talking about, they're non-human, but they are, like Professor said, they are connected to us in a way that if they are not there, life doesn't have the same meaning. The fish doesn't taste as good. So I want you to speak about how we can incorporate ethics of care in not just how we discuss these issues, but how we govern around these issues. Because sometimes it's very easy for us to say, oh, this flood happens every year. Why aren't these people moving? Or why are they still staying in that community if, they know that every year, come September, like for instance, His Royal Majesty has told us, every year, come September, they will have Omioke. And Omioke will come with its wahala. So why are they still waiting for Omioke? Why don't they climb to Oke so that the Omi will not come and meet them? So please help us decode this a little bit to help us understand how we can discuss and engage this issue with ethics of care.
Okay, thank you, Amara. I will attempt to answer this complex question. I think for me, one of the things that I've seen, and particularly within our sector as civil society, and maybe even government, is the weaponization of expertise, where certain types of people are deemed experts and only the people with those solutions. I'll give an example. Within the sector, we believe, okay, we're getting funding, and therefore if we're getting funding from this donor who insists that we approach a matter in a certain way, we must do it that way. They are the expert. And then going down, working on the ground, because you've received the funding, as civil society, you go ahead and also try to continue with that tendency. And because of that, you see it also on social media. The louder some people are, the more correct they appear to be, and the ones whose opinions are listened to. The weaponization of expertise. Unfortunately, we're working in a sector right now that despite so much money being poured into various areas, such as climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, the impact on the ground has been extremely minimal. I believe one of the reasons as well is language, is that people on the ground applying language to what is being experienced, with civil society acting as a bridge, working also with other tiers of government and traditional rulers. I think also in terms of ethics of care, whenever we talk about gender, we just talk about men and women. However, take it a little deeper and recognize that men and women are not a homogeneous group. Within those groups, you have people who are young, you've got people with disabilities, but you've also got to think about income. Let's agree, when you go in a flooding, if you've got people within a community with means, they're going to leave. But if you have people, this is their only home, their livelihoods are affected, I think it's so important that whatever strategies you devise is to understand how various groups of people within the genders are actually affected. I think for me, that's how we miss the point to a degree. But secondly, I know a lot of times we have such an oppositional approach to government, whether it's the federal government, state government, or local government. The dearth of trust and the ability to work together has also affected the way the country is operating at the moment. But I think collectively being able to come to some middle ground as to how to approach these issues is important. We pay taxes to the governments. I mean, there's no excuse for how this country is today in terms of climate change. Another point I think I need to bring up, and I think that's my last point, it's about the nexus between climate change and security. I know that is the subject of the next panel. However, working with the international community, especially here within Nigeria, you realize one thing. Whenever you talk about climate change in the Niger Delta, they look at you strangely and wonder, is it really taking place? And because there is so much focus on what's happening in the north, the desertification as to how it is affecting the insurgency. And therefore, I think one of the ways forward is really data. We need a lot of data within the region. We need a lot of evidence. Problem is with academia, a lot of information stays within the journals, which half the time cannot be accessed by a lot of people outside these institutions. But I think for me, that evidence, the local knowledge, and bringing various people together to try to find some possible solutions, but recognizing that the various stratas of society must be represented. Thank you.
Okay, so I forgot that Florence was going to be using her American voice. And I missed the opportunity of inserting the fact that the US just experienced one of its disastrous floods in Texas recently. And there's a debate about the ethics of care around that disaster. But coming home, and I would like this to go to Ms. Ibiba Don Pedro, because there's quite a bit of this that we can mitigate. And I would love for you to address that. But more importantly, there are changes that we can't prevent. They are already baked in. We have to adapt to them. For instance, the fact that the fishes have gone 40 kilometers away is not something that we can immediately impact. We have to adapt to those things. Now, my question to you, especially because a lot of these also affect particularly women, how can society support communities to adapt to some of these impacts of climate change? What are the things that you see that are far more important at the community level that society needs to do to facilitate, to assist communities to be able to cope better, to maintain a level of quality of life, but also to preserve life in the context of what we now know that we are going to be living with?
Okay, thank you very much. It still boils down to some of the issues that have came up when my partner and sister Constance spoke, and also His Royal Highness spoke, and we all who are activists, we know it's, still digging deep in the communities. And it's also about the gender issues too, about women in the community, about men in the community, about local knowledge, about the concerns of people in the community. I'm on the board of SDN2 with Florence, and these are things we grapple with all the time. This morning, that's why I asked a prof, the question I threw at him. How do we move? We've been doing this, and for 20-something, 30 years, I've known Reverend Nemo, I've known most of you from the time I was at The Guardian. We've been doing this. We've made a lot of impact. Still, the problems remain. The first time I went to Ayetoro was in 2000 or so. I was a much younger reporter with The Guardian. And these issues of coastal erosion was there, the sea surge and all of that. But when I came in this afternoon and I saw that video, that clip, I got weak. Because I asked myself, 20 years ago, this thing was on. The Guardian commissioned us. Then it was at the time Obasanjo's government was making preparations for the setting up of the NDDC. And The Guardian, of course, which has always been, now The Guardian is almost gone, finished. The Guardian used to be one of those organizations that used to fund reporting. That was my strength in The Guardian, because The Guardian will fund me because I'm that kind of adventurous person and all of that, and enterprising. The Guardian funded us. We went to communities across the Niger Delta. We had discussions with women in the Laje area, Ayetoro, so many communities. And it's really sad for me to get, you heard the voices, most of the people there, they are community people, but a lot of women and children. When the floods come at night, like he spoke with us, it's the women and their children that will be there mostly, and the men, yes. But no mother is going to run out of her hut or her building while her children are drowning in that kind of place. So the issues remain, and we really need, that's for me. I'm going beyond this focus on, us just meeting. I want to see government officials here. Let's speak truth to them. Let's speak truth to them. That has been my concern in the last few years. We cannot keep meeting. Let them know how we feel. We know that at the end of the day, it will have to come to us being in that position, because that's what's going to make the difference. When my local government chairman knows that I'm going to bring up his issues here, and after this conference is over, he will probably lose his job, then he's going to sit up. Until we get to that point where the political aspirations of anybody is in line, is in tune with what their communities want, with what the women, with what the disabled person, the ordinary person who is powerless, who is ordinarily voiceless, we make their issue the center of what we discuss at events like this and across the country. We're going to see come back here 5 years more talking about this, and that will be too sad for somebody like me. Because I'm getting to that point where I'm asking myself, how, where, how? How do we get the kind of traction we need on all of these issues to lift millions of our people who are in the communities struggling? Now, look at, you can't even imagine how I felt watching that video. Because I was in those communities 20 years ago. It was bad, but it wasn't as bad as I saw this afternoon. It's a big, big concern for me, and I've just told them I'm coming to your community, but how many communities am I going to be able to go to? We were in Sangana, the same thing. People pointed where their parents' graves were, like a few kilometers into the middle of the ocean in Sangana, Bayelsa State. It's there everywhere. There are women who are so poor. They were, like you all know, those of us who work in the communities, when you go there, you don't just go for advocacy. You have to deal with community people's issues, and it's mostly women and their children. So we as activists, because that's why people like us have remained doing this work, doing media, doing activism. How do I want to run away? I'm an Ijaw woman. My mom is Shekiri. How do I want to run away from the Niger Delta issue? How do I want to run away? We can't stay away. That's why Constance is still there. That's why so many of us are still there. That's why people like Bode and all of us, we're still there. We cannot run away now unless we're being dishonest. Because you go and be complaining and turn yourself to a whiner instead of somebody who brings about change. We need more research. We need to use more of the people like His Royal Majesty. The women I've met in the communities, because my work has always been about women, and incidentally, all the awards I won were around my work on women. I speak with them, and the truth they bring is so empowering that you cannot ignore it. They are knowledgeable. We need to bring up their voices. Those of us who have been working on women, we should do more of that. And never get tired, because where are we going? We can never get tired, but we have to hold the political class to account. I'm so passionate about that, and because I don't really care about being friends with anybody, I just want to speak my truth. You understand? Yes, I don't care. For those who don't know, and I speak about it, somebody was saying tone down. I'm not toning down. I was offered the position of spokesperson to IBAS. I'm from the state of emergency, Rivers. You know that. I'm from the state of emergency. Rivers, no, that's state of emergency. And I was offered the position to be, the week IBAS was appointed, I was approached. They said they wanted somebody award-winning. Award-winning amount, is it to do dirty work? I said, no. You have to stand for something and stand for it forever. Because, you know what we say about truth? You can push it, you go get tired. It's like a boy. It will never drown. It will never sink. So let's keep speaking our truth. Let's come from the position of knowledge like we've done. My work over the years, 20-something years in the media, was empowered by my association with people like Nimo Basi, Oronto Douglas, all of them, Uche Onyagucha, everybody who has been part of this, Isaac, Jaye, all of them, we were all part of the people, the voices, yes, the voices of the Niger Delta. And I'm not running away. What will I do now? I want to go and live abroad. I'll be in Canada. I don't like colds. Thank you.
You see, this is why I always like my panels. You people give me the best panel. Please, if you think this panel is the best panel, a round of applause. So I will now close with
your co-facilitator.
Exactly, my co-facilitator. And because he showed me up by showing that I didn't show up on time, I'm going to give him the hardest question.
You know, I know the party question.
Oh, no. But here is the thing, right? And this is what I want you to help us address. These challenges are sometimes seasonal, sometimes repetitive. That means that we know you expect this thing to happen at a certain time of the year. Every year, and it gets worse. Or maybe every 5 years, then you have this big flood. Then 200,000 people are dead, or 200,000 people are dislocated. Now, the question has always been about what can we do better in terms of managing the process of early warning and translating that early warning to actual impact of saving lives on the ground. So what do you think that we are not doing well? What can we do better? Because it's one thing to talk about the causes, and some of these causes, like for instance, Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. If they open it, no matter how many times we talk about climate change here, once they open Lagdo Dam, we are all running for our lives. So what can we do better to protect the lives and livelihoods on ground, as knowing the seasonality and the periodicity of these challenges? What is it that we are not doing, and what can we do better?
Anyway, thanks, Amara. I just want to say that Prof mentioned in the morning that they were reviewing about 56 environmental laws. And I was trying to keep track as he was mentioning some. I wanted to see two things, either embedded in the laws or as a standalone policy or law. First thing, for us to tackle climate change, we must always address the drivers of climate change. We cannot have effective policies if we don't, at every point of our policy or action, incorporate elements of polluters paying, elements of cutting down those drivers of climate change. And so part of why we consistently have this problem, why there will continue to be flooding or temperature rising, ocean rising, is that the corporations that are driving climate change were not making enough effort in insulating them from policies and action to tackle climate change, to the extent that they actually manipulated us into believing tackling climate change itself could be another business of net zero. If we don't tackle this, we're not going to get any reduction. We're just going to be in this cycle. We're going to be talking about the palliatives. We're going to be talking about opening the dams and the rest of them. And I think one of the things we always must think about is how to create a wedge between corporations and our government. The corporations want us to focus only on our government. In fact, a lot of the time they want us to put the government as the villain. They are the ones causing the problem. Of course, we know we have problems with our government. But behind, who are actually the people driving the government? Who are the people going to them midnight with the policies? Who knows that these policies were not going to work in the first instance? So, holding corporations accountable as regards the issues of climate change, working for real solutions, not false solutions, not net zero on issues of climate change, tackling emission from source, then we'll begin to say, yes, we are heading somewhere to tackling climate change. Of course, there are other immediate issues bordering our, response mechanisms in Nigeria in terms of issues of care. At a point, I was doing some little work around, disaster management and disaster administration in Nigeria. Let me tell you, there is tons and tons of research. Way back 1970, I can't remember, Prof, maybe you guys, I saw recommendations about how to map, the zones, disaster-prone areas, flooding-prone areas. They have all these documents lying somewhere, no action. Do you understand? Maybe then this is the time for us, now, advocates like us, professors that are here, to begin to do research of practice. You know what I mean, sir? Possibly go back to some of those documents. Make it accessible to people like us who are professional noisemakers, I call us, to begin to say, look, you do have this document. You know where it's flood prone. We know all the places, Gogola Basin, the Lokoja Basin, all of them, they are there. They map them, they know it. All of us, I'll say this and I'll keep quiet. See, please, Nigerians that are here, this is how flood happened in Nigeria. It will first happen somewhere not. It may be reported, it may be underreported. Do we need anybody to tell us that that water is coming to Lokoja? It will get to Lokoja, nothing is done. Hello, that water is going to Bayelsa or to Ayetoro. And do you know one thing? It takes like about 4 months for the fourth flood up there to Bayelsa, maybe 3. And then it stays a lot in around Alhambra area, you understand? The point is, I think for us too, we also need to do more in terms of getting government to respond. I did, the first great, for my generation, was 2010, that we call the Great Flood, the one that happened in Lokoja. The people are still displaced till today. We should begin to hold them accountable. That 2010 flood, a lot of, Jonathan was in government. There was huge, 2012, huge donation. Do you understand? We need to follow up. All the people, yes, we attempted to in my organization. We went back to Lokoja. Some of the families that were displaced were given just one roofing. I don't know how to describe it, please.
One
roofing sheets,
One bundle or just
not
one?
Not bundle. One from a bundle. And one sheet, that you understand. So look, there is, at the global scale, disaster capitalism. In Nigeria, every time there is disaster, it is actually to make profit. And we also need to hold them accountable so that they are causing this problem in the first instance, they are also profiting from it. These are challenges and that we need to look at in terms of bringing solutions. Thank you.
Please raise up your hand if you've learned anything from this panel. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. So we've come to the end of the panel. I think there's a session where there's general questions and answers, but not this one. But I want to thank everybody on this panel. Because, please, another round of applause for them, please. Because everybody has dropped significant knowledge. And I'm very proud to be from Ondo State. Please, a round of applause for me. No, not today. I've always been from Ondo State. If you don't know I'm from Ondo State, then you don't know me very well. So please, a round of applause. Let's take a picture and then we'll leave. Oh, yes. Oh, I've been to Ayetoro before. Yes. Yes.
Wow, that was a very powerful panel. Thank you so much, Amara, for so expertly moderating that panel. And so because we're not doing very well with time, we'll move straight to the next panel. And I'll be calling on my friend and colleague, Joyce Brown, to lead us into the next panel. And Joyce Brown will be introducing members of her panel. But before Joyce takes over the microphone, you know I had told you that this conference was international, right? And that we have people here from other countries here. So I think it is very prudent that we just have, recognize them and just have them wave. We have got my friend and my brother, Kwame Bonzo from Togo. Kwame? Where's Kwame? Kwame, you're welcome. We have got my sister Fatima Diallo from Senegal. You are seated there. I saw you, Fatima. She's out, okay. We have also got our partner and friend, Dr. Ibrahima Thiam from Senegal. Ibrahima? I think they have all gone somewhere to hide. You've already seen Boa Monjane. Please, just wave one more time. Excellent. And then we have Trina Jackson from the USA. Trina? We have Noble Wadza from Ghana. Dr. Noble. We have also got Ali Tapsoba from Burkina Faso. Ali. Thank you so much. We have Esther Kande from Sierra Leone. We have Issa Guindo from Mali. And we have Roland Ngam from Cameroon. Thank you everyone who has traveled so far to be part of this conversation. Thank you very much. And it's over to you, Joyce Brown.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Let's tie together for our facilitator. It's not easy doing all the talking, or most of the talking from morning till now. Thank you so much. So I'll stand to receive our distinguished panelists. And first on my list is Patterson Ogon, Director of Planning, Research and Statistics at the Niger Delta Development Commission. Please let's put our hands together for him as he comes aboard. The louder you clap, the faster he gets here. Next on our list is Hawa Mustafa, this development activist and coordinating director of Tubali Development Initiative. Next, we have Dr. Otive Igbuzo, Founder and Executive Director, African Center for Leadership, Strategy and Development. Okay, great. Please come forward. And very importantly, we have Rita Uwaka, Project Manager and Regional Program Coordinator, Friends of the Earth Africa. You guys thought the last panel was great. You'll be wow. It's a panel of expertise, not just experts. All right, so I'll take my seat and the conversation will proceed. So we don't have an empty chair. All right, so this panel is looking at understanding underlying nexuses, connections, relationships basically, between exploration and exploitation and how that connects with, that's exploitation of natural resources, that is, and how it connects with agriculture, the climate, the conflicts and insecurities that are experienced, and why do we need to study or examine or have a conversation around these connections? It's important because understanding how these issues are connected or interconnected help us better understand their root causes, and also helps us to organize better to bring the solutions. During the keynote presentation, Professor Ladipo mentioned the importance of policy coherence and institutional synergy. So if we don't understand how these different issues, agriculture, climate conflict, insecurity, the climate crisis itself connect, it will be difficult to identify the agencies responsible and how they can work together. So enough, I'm not an expert in not as much as our distinguished panel. So I'll just because of time, we will not take so many questions. But I will start with Madam Hawa, and I'm not going to say I'm moving from right to left. Pardon me for that. This is to speak to the conflicts, farmer headers. I mean, I've had some recommendations that you've made recently on how to address them, or just to say them to the larger house. How badly do these conflicts affect agriculture? Does our government know the extent of the damage that is being done? And do you think there are sufficient strategies or efforts in place to address these conflicts?
So thank you very much, Joyce, and good afternoon, everybody. I want to start by, I know that the earlier key presentations will have dealt into the issues of exploration and exploitation. They're not new to us. But with respect to agriculture, I just want to say a few things around that. Traditionally, human major source of livelihood is agriculture. We know that. So traditionally, we explore the land for food. Traditionally, we explore the land for source of livelihood. That source of food also goes, doubles as source of livelihood. Over the years, we began to explore the land, not just for food, not just for livelihood, but then for accumulation of resources. And accumulation in the context of going beyond what we need. And I think this is where exploitation now came in. And in the quest for exploitation, that is using the land, exploring the land overtly beyond the necessary needs of our immediate needs for consumption and livelihood, we began to destroy the land. We began to use every kind of force. Somebody in the earlier panel mentioned weaponization, I think she mentioned weaponization of expertise. Now we started doing, we now went into the weaponization of even the source of food itself. So we started, and by doing that, we created poverty in this context. And now we created a lot of, because in the area of exploitation, there are bound to be conflicts. There are conflicts between the owners, the immediate owners of the resource, the immediate owners, or those who are perceived to be the owners of the area of resource, and the resource itself, and the process, of production of the resource from that, from the natural position to maybe areas of consumption and all that. And so this is where we are having the areas of conflict, especially in the areas of agriculture, particularly around the north, and also between what we call the herders and farmers. The herders and farmers traditionally depend on land and agriculture resources for their own livelihoods and, of course, for food. Human beings depend on food, vegetables, and whatever through the farmers. Human beings also depend on even other sources of additional food, protein, through the herders. And also, as well as milk, cheese, and other products that come out of. Depend on even other sources of additional food, protein, through the herders. And also, as well as cheese and other products that come out of. Source of employment, a source of livelihood, at different levels. But when humankind or a system allows humankind along the way to begin to, create a situation where you begin to create competition. And competition because now you have something like land grabbing. People who are land grabbers are not grabbing simply because they want to add, income or value to the source of food that land produces or that traditional farmers are doing. Beyond that, it is for them also a source of accumulation of wealth. Indeed, accumulation of wealth in such a manner that beyond what you normally need, not necessarily for humankind, not necessarily for improvement and for development, but much more so for also for just self-aggrandizement, and this is where issues of capital, system of economic also came in. And along the way, with land grabbing and with other sorts of farmers traditionally were left with fewer land, and overexploitation of that land came after the fact that with this little land or with this smaller space of land, you also wanted to produce large number of food, not just to feed people, but also to increase your income, or at least maintain, not to at least go lower than a certain level of well-being that you're familiar with. And this is how we begin to have conflict. So land is shrinking by those who are producing genuinely for humankind, because it is being grabbed by those who just want to fill up their pockets for political and economic status. And with this little land, with this shrinking of the land, the majority of those who are required to use that land, to explore that land for humankind, for genuine purposes, are getting larger, and the resource is getting smaller. So you see, conflict naturally comes in. And then this land that naturally comes in between those who need the land for farming, for food, by those who need the land for rearing their livestock, and of course, on the other hand, by those who also need the land to explore even beyond the surface of the land what is beneath the surface of the land. What is under the ground for their own exploration. So under the ground, in areas where now you can either do your herding or do your farming, there is also the question of minerals that are also bound in this same land. And if you look at these are some of the things that are happening, particularly in the north. The north might have a very large area geographically, but in reality, the space that is enough for real farming, for real food production is shrinking. It's not only shrinking by size, it is also shrinking by quality. So the arability of our land is also reducing by the day. And people will need to want to move away, to some other places where they feel that there's more arability. And then for other opportunistic tendencies now take advantage of this kind of situation. And that is where we find the marketers of GMOs also taking advantage to further explore and further exploit the resources and the people who are also utilizing or who are also affected by these resources. Because the land has been shrunk through different methods of exploitation, which includes, overgrazing, overfarming, and land grabbing. They now introduce what they say, look, instead of you to say you need probably 100 hectares of land to produce 1,000 bags of rice, you can do this. You can produce probably 2,000 bags of rice with even probably 5 hectares or 10 hectares of land. Because they now begin to introduce a kind of science that for them, it does not matter how it affects humanity, how it affects the health, how it even affects reproduction itself, how it even affects even the wealth creation within this sector. Wealth creation, for them, it is much more about or how it even affects wealth distribution. It's also about, so you now have conflicts of interest, not just between herders and farmers. It is usually made to be seen as if it's a conflict of issues between herders and farmers. But beyond herders and farmers, it is also about those who are very much interested in what the resources are there underground. We don't see them as farmers, we don't see them as herders. And I think these are even the worst personalities or the worst persons that are even creating and perpetuating insecurity in this country. So that we don't have to go to farmers, because some people have caused a land to shrink and are still doing that. Some people have also caused a land, and so by that have created a conflict because you have reduced space where people need to farm. Some people have also created a conflict, and by that you have also created hunger. Because people are also unable to even understand some of the so-called, new mechanisms or agricultural mechanisms that you are bringing in. Number one, they are very expensive, so are unaffordable. Number two, they are also not accessible. And number three, the people that are even expected to use them do not have the necessary skill to even utilize some of these inputs. So at the end of the day, you see there is a hand. What you see is the face of the voice of Esau and the skin of, where is that? Pardon me, the Christians around here. The voice of Esau and the hand of Jacob. So what we are seeing is the voice of the farmers that are in conflict, but the hand that is behind, that is pulling the buttons of that struggle, we hardly, see them. And so for me, what therefore it needs to be done in terms of policy recommendation is that government needs to go beyond this plastic, policy recommendation or arrangement of saying we want to increase food security by also decreasing or fighting insecurity by policing, and then harmonizing the whole area because you are fighting insecurity, and at the same time throwing GMOs and fertilizers to farmers because you want to increase food security. I don't think that is the solution. That way you are not addressing the root cause of the problem. You are only looking at surface issues and the real cause, and it will not last. So you can have a bumper harvest today, but next year what do we have? We have a kind of season, because there is no, strong preparation to harvest, to explore, and to maintain, or to address the concrete issues. In another 1 year or 2 years, you find a situation of which we moved one step forward and probably 2 steps or 3 steps backward. So generally, in terms of recommendation, I think that it's very important that government goes beyond what is the surface, and also in terms of understanding, we the CSOs also owe ourselves the duty to also give the proper narrative of what the issues are in terms of conflict in the agriculture sector, in terms of how the nexus between exploitation and exploration also, gives best conflicts, and whom the real culprits are in this context, so that we are also addressing the real situation and not just the surface problem. Thank you.
Thank you. solutions, to the question of insecurity. You talked about GMOs, and that's a subject that is very dear to my heart, and I think it's a good space to say a bit more about it. Because when we talk about insecurity, food insecurity in Nigeria, and the government is pushing proposing GMOs to solve that problem, many of us tend to think, oh, if there is food insecurity, then this must be a good solution because people are hungry. As Madam Hawa has said, that only means addressing the problem from the surface and not from the root. There's a school of thought that most of these farmer clashes and general banditry and insecurity is connected to a deliberate effort to prevent farmers or reduce the ability of farmers to actually produce food, just to create a market for these products that she highlighted as GMOs. GMOs stand for genetically modified organisms. And for example, in April last year, we had what they call stellar maize, right? They're supposed to be drought resistant. And there are a number of other kinds of products. Some are produced or designed to be pesticides themselves, others to be herbicide tolerant. And all of these have been turned around to bring about ecological problems. Take, for example, the herbicide tolerant ones. So you have the use of these particular kinds of GMOs over time increasing the dependency on these toxic herbicides, making it even more difficult for farmers to cultivate or for plants to be productive. So this is a subject this is a conversation we all need to get involved in, and hopefully we'll have a space to go deeper in it. Next week we have an agroecology conference. We want to be there so you learn more about this and the way forward. I'll move quickly to our brother from the Dr. Tiver's organization. Ida? Wait, what's your name? Thank you so much. So could you speak to the governance? I know there are some sort of touched on since morning, but could you speak to some of the major governance and regulatory lapses with regards to the exploitation of natural resources?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the issues that we are dealing with here are very, very serious issues. Because we're talking about exploitation. We are talking about, on the one hand, we are talking about those that are doing their genuine business in terms of farming to be able to survive and create their own livelihood and move forward. And in the process of all that Madam Hawa has said, land grabbing comes into play and all of that. I think that policies that we have in fact, I think Nigeria has a problem, and it's a peculiar problem. Because I was talking with somebody outside earlier, and I said, look, this country, is there hope? Can anything be done? Are we short of policies? Are we short of even manpower that will be able to help us to deliver? And if you look around this hall, I don't think we are short of the manpower. We are not short of the intellectuals that will be able to drive that. We are not short also of policies, because over 56 policies were mentioned here. Was it that they were not there? They were there. But the reality is that, so what do we do with these policies? Is our government ready to actually take those policies to do what they should do to the advantage of the people? No. Because in the end, you look at it and you ask yourself, is this government actually ready to work to the benefit of the people? No. If they do, all of these issues we are talking about, land grabbing, which they are also part of, which they have also created artificially to ensure that their own ends meet. We're not short of these policies. They are there. But in the end, nothing is being done. Nobody takes it seriously. We have Mining Act, what is happening? Land Use Act, what is happening? We have people in the community who are also the custodian of the lands in the community. What happens when power and big money comes into that community. They disarticulate the community, ensure that they have their way, and get whatever they want to get done. So in my view, I'm not sure that we are short of policies. The policies are there. We are not making good use of them. The way forward, for me, if you ask me, is that we have done it over and over. The lady from Guardian has mentioned that. We have done it over and over. But should we stop doing what we should do? No. We need to continue to engage. As civil society, we need to continue to engage government. We must keep talking. Nemo mentioned that also. We will keep talking until one day they will hear us. And to say that changes are not taking place, well, if you look at society, there's progress that is being made, technically. But those things that we want to see in terms of agricultural practices, the policies, and those things that should give us the levity to be able to earn our livelihood, those things are not being done. So we'll keep engaging. We'll work with civil society, should be able to work with government, keep pressure and keep the pressure and keep the pressure until something is done. We have done this before at the level of the Ogoni cleanup. We were operating under the Code 8 project. And there are a lot of things that we have done around the Ogoni cleanup. And just as we are about to really muzzle and take off, that was when the funding ended. And so everything stopped at that point. But to say that we are not going to continue, till date we are continuing to engage, and we'll keep engaging until government listens to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we shouldn't get discouraged, because there's a point you get to sometimes that you're wondering what's the point of all this, especially when it comes to government action. Like we'll be talking 20, 30 years and counting, no change. But the encouragement is that we keep talking. Does it make sense that we do an audit of policies, environmental policies in Nigeria? So actually look at what are the purposes of these policies? Are there policies that should be scrapped? Are there policies that should be merged? Are there policies that should be redesigned? Just so we have policies that are actually effective and that have action plans accompanying them. Now let's come to our communities. And that question, I think, the person who would respond to the question, I'm sure she knows herself already. Madam Rita, in your opinion, are community people, are they seen as stakeholders or obstacles in terms of the natural resource exploitation in Nigeria? And what would a consensus look like in terms of resource management? And also if you could speak to the concept of resource democracy in terms of the involvement of the communities themselves in decision making regarding the exploration of these resources.
Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, everyone. To speak on this subject, this is something that is really very important, especially when we are talking about issues of exploitation of our resources and the role of stakeholders in galvanizing support towards promoting solutions. And these solutions rest in the hands of community people. They are the best custodians of our natural resources. They've been custodians for centuries, but they are also the most impacted when these resources are taken away. As custodians of forests, community protect the forest. They've always been the best custodians. When I say communities, I mean forest-dependent peoples, women, men from different territories in Nigeria. But when, for example, our forests are brought to their knees as a result of capitalist model of agriculture where our forests are being converted to agro-commodities in the name of development, the communities become the most impacted. And women play a key role in forest conservation. They also remain, the most impacted when these forests are brought to their knees. So these are very strong concerns, land concessions, forest concessions are given to corporations without communities being carried along. The free, prior, informed concept most of the time is being manipulated. Environmental impact assessment is now like a jamboree. People do not have decision-making power as community people in deciding governance of their resources. Most times it's being hijacked by so-called experts, and also corporations are influencing policies and practices, policies of government, practices on the ground. They are impacting and they're influencing because they are very powerful. So community continue to be impacted in so many ways, and these have a lot of multi-level impact, social impact, economic impact, gender impact, and we are in a situation where Nigeria is in is suffering ecological pandemic. Because if you look around us, aerial exploration, for example, in the Niger Delta, is impacting our diverse ecosystem, aquatic lives, our mangroves, livelihoods are being truncated. And who bear the brunt of all of these impacts? The community people, especially women who are connected to land, who are connected to farmlands, who are connected to forests, to water bodies, and all the resources therein. So it's important for us to build a collective solidarity to promote the rights of indigenous people, local communities, to galvanize support, to give voice to the voiceless, to community people who are suffering diverse impacts, and also to project them at different fora like what OMF is doing at this instance. A lot of community efforts are being brought to the fore. The promotion of indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, is key in addressing biodiversity crisis, climate crisis, and care crisis. These are very important points that we need to continue to foster at different fora. And also, considering the fact that we have a lot of influx of the private sector into our policy work, there's a whole lot of financialization of nature, investment in forced solutions. We need to call out the role of financiers. The role of financiers in foiling, climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, care crisis. The role of financiers in exacerbating climate crisis, and also influencing our decision makers. We're seeing a situation where, for example, at the COP, we see corporations taking the stage, infiltrating and changing text of negotiation in the negotiation room, and also impacting on decision-making space. So we need to find a way to counter some of these false narratives that are being taken to our policy spaces, that are being driven by corporate interest. We need to dismantle, the idea of, promoting profit over people, because it's all about making money for private pockets, all about making money for corporations. It has to be right-based. It has to be something that has to be collective. It has to include indigenous knowledge. And we have to build that solidarity movement, because it can begin from here. We're already doing it in our own small way, in our own units, in our communities, in our territories, in our offices, in our advocacy spaces. So we need to build a collective solidarity work to dismantle the systemic oppression that are confronting us at different spheres.
Thank you so much. Just before you hand over the microphone, just to ask a practical question in terms of how communities can both be stakeholders or obstacles in resource exploitation. So, for example, the issue of resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni land, for example. So we have a majority of the people understanding the need for that to not happen, the need for protection of the communities affected, the need for remediation and all that. And then we have another group of community people, I mean both are community people, who want the resumption to happen, who probably because of the benefits they get from it. So how do we as CSOs, as general stakeholders, address this sort of challenge where the same community people are the ones clamoring for this resource extraction for whatever reason?
Yeah, these are some of the advocacy challenges that we meet at our different, workspaces, at different communities. Communities are clamoring for resource control. Why some are saying, no, we do not want this, and we are seeing a lot of conflicts at different community level. For example, at the oil and gas exploration area in the Niger Delta, where there's a whole lot of divide and rule. Some are for oil exploration, while some are against. So we need to continue to conscientize communities to understand the implications of their decisions. We are not just making decisions for them, we are creating opportunity for communities to understand the implications of the decisions that they make. It's important to make informed choice. That's why we need to continue to see how we can bring communities together on a round table to conscientize each and every one of us that this is for the good of the environment. This is for our own good. If we continue oil exploration, these are the impacts. And these is what we are going to suffer, if not this generation, but our generation, next generations to come. These impacts need to be really clear, especially stakeholders like traditional rulers in community territories, like youth groups, community development associations, women groups that are connected to these landscapes. Even in the southern part of Nigeria, where we have a lot of forested landscapes, where our forests are being converted to plantation, we also have these kind of issues. Some want agro-commodities companies to come into their territories because they feel it's a way of them, getting jobs and other, social benefits. But we've been able to conscientize them to a great extent that communities are now beginning to fight against, the groups that are fighting for agro-commodities expansion. So we need to really find a way, collectively, to bring out the hazards of these issues of oil and gas exploration, the impacts on the environment, the impacts on human health, the impacts on the soil, and also what communities can do in order to speak against these systemic violations and impacts in their territory. So we need to continue to galvanize support. We need to build that advocacy space to continue to strengthen community leaders so that they don't continue to see it as a sign of development when ordinarily it's a sign of impoverishment.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause for Rita. Now, Professor Pass. You work on research, and anybody doing research, I think it's safe to call them professors. All right, so based on your expertise on this subject, please tell us what role research can play in terms of addressing issues of extractivism as a major driver of violent conflict, insecurity, and ecological crisis. If you could also speak to who, in your opinion, are the real knowledge holders, and if you want to carry out research, what kind of research?
Well, I will start and end my presentation with two local pidgin proverbs. And the first is that if you take cow eye, look life, and only grass you go see. Sorry? If you use God eye. And I'm starting from there because in the Niger Delta, we see the forests, we see the rivers, everything. Yes, we are all agree that pollution is going on. We are losing a lot. But one thing we haven't done is to do an evaluation of our forest resources, in fact, all of our resources. This is 2025. I'm sure between 2010 and now, we've lost a lot. If you give it another 10 years, there probably might be a lot more we'll lose. Are we taking care? Are we taking special note of the losses? I don't think we are, because we have not been very meticulous with even looking at what we have to now understand when we no longer see them. And it's actually a very sorry situation. Growing up as a young boy, you can actually set your pot and take your net to the river, and in 5 minutes, you're back with fishes. Today, a lot more of those species, I'm not even talking about species, you don't even find them. So that has forced several persons who even live in local communities to buy ice fish. They live on ice fish, not fish from their river anymore. So what happened to the river? How did we get to this point? And again, you look at the extent of fish cultivation. People are doing fish farming. You see the fish, you don't get the taste. It's totally different from the natural ones that you see in the market to buy, if you ever see them. And if you see them, they are beyond your reach. They are so expensive, you just ask the price and you move away. So a lot has happened in terms of the losses that we have incurred. Take the forest also, for instance. Ogbono is common to all of us who live in communities. But most of those trees have been cut down either for different purposes. Either maybe for exploration purposes, or maybe we lost them because of pollution, and several other purposes. So the forest cover is lost. We used to just go to the bush specifically to look for snails. Now you have to grow snails in your house. Those ones, when you buy them, you still don't get the taste. So a lot has happened. So I think that it's key for us to begin to look at beginning somewhere. Can we start now to begin to look at even doing an assessment of what resources we have had over the years? How many of them are still there? How many are we likely going to lose in another 5 or 10 years? And then look at probably why it's happening the way it's happening. Is it just the pollution? Are there other causes? People go to the farm, they harvest cassavas that smell of crude oil. All these things are there. So the earlier we are actually able to look at all of these and do a proper assessment, then we are taking grip of our situation. And then that way is going to help us. So research essentially is very key because it's the data from that research that will drive policy actions, for the future. I think that is key. We should begin to look at several options that are possible, engage researchers, more especially from local knowledge. We had the Oba talk about the local knowledge from Ayetoro. You can't get that in most on the streets. You don't. So you need those local knowledge to even drive research that will give you policy actions, to get results. Again, well, maybe for academic purposes as well, you really can't also rule out
those who are in the academia and research institutions. They have their own, also their very scientific ways of dealing with those issues. So you must marry them. Those researches must also include people who are in the academia. And those researches must be tailored for specific action, policy action, you know. And of course, I mean, like I will say, I started by saying that I'll end with 2 quotes. And the second and the last is that if you don't know what they do, if you don't know what they do you, make you know what they do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Patterson. I think one striking thing I picked from his submission is how we have natural resources. Nigeria is rich with these natural resources, yet we are depending on imports, right? He talked about how communities with rivers around are having to depend on ice fish, of which we know what the difference in the taste is like. So these are serious issues that we need to ensure that we take forward. So I would just maybe pass the microphone round just for a 1 minute final remark, and let it be a call for action. It can be re-stressing something you've said before, but call for action, just 1 minute.
Yeah, we need to continue to build people power, because that's one way we can dismantle the corporate capture of our resources, the destruction of our ecological diversity, and also to the promotion of indigenous knowledge. We cannot be talking about environmental justice or climate justice without collective solidarity. And we can also be doing that without gender justice. Thank you.
Research will drive the action that we will need to take. And we'll need everybody with the requisite knowledge to contribute to that data bank, to count himself in. We need those resources, we need those information, we need everybody to be on board, to provide the necessary base for policy actions at any point. And even as we do those research, let's be sure that those who are in the position to implement them are actually part of the process. So at the end of the day, it makes it easier for them. I think collectively we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also want to emphasize that moving forward, I think it's very important that we do grassroots community mobilization. We are moving into an era of, reorganizing through movement building. And it's high time that we also began to build a movement, that connects everyday people. Because sometimes we also make the error of, when we talk about community, we disconnect the real everyday people in the community, from the leadership of the community. And I think it's high time we also began to go real deep into the everyday people of the community. Even our researchers should also learn to connect with those everyday people. Let them be part of it. Let them understand why it is being done, and let them also make contributions to even how some of these studies are also being carried out. And that way, they also feel part of the policy-making process. Because when you do, however, we have policies, but however beautiful, however fantastic they may be in terms of the color and the publications, if they do not resonate with the people, if they do not connect with the people in terms of participation and in terms of their everyday life, these policies at best just remain policies in our bookshelves or in our office cupboards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think one key thing that seems to be missing in what we have done is the fact that, yes, most of the things that we do it at a higher level, almost like an elitist thing. If you look at funders today, most funders want to return to community-based associations, community-based organizations, and all of that. So, and I think what we need to really do is to begin to raise voices from the communities. Let the communities begin to speak for themselves while we take a little bit of step behind, so that let it be coming from the community. She mentioned something about divide and rule. If we allow the communities to take charge of the whole issues that is affecting them, and we are behind giving them that support, I think it's really going to help us to move forward in a manner that even those at a higher level, those people who are ruling us, will also know that changes are beginning to also take place at the level of the communities, so that when people come back home, they will be asked, what have you done? We have this issue. Have you done anything? So that community voice, people power, is very critical. Thank you.
Permit me to also have a last word. All right, so just to say that, I mean, this panel looked at the connections of these issues that we've been highlighting since morning. And now we want to speak to how we are all connected as a people, and how we can hardly succeed without this connection and without the connected effort. So this is really just to encourage each and every one of us, no matter what area your focus is, advocacy, research, budget, community mobilization, we all need to work together more closely to ensure that when it comes to engaging government, we are doing it powerfully. When it comes to community demonstrations, we are doing it powerfully. And when it comes to resistance, we're also doing it powerfully. And so this is just to say, together we are stronger, and together we will win. On that note, please put your hands together. Wonderful panelists. You will agree with me that this is the best panel. Argue with your phone keyboard. All right, thank you so much. So we'll do the group photos, and I'll hand over to Ken Henshaw. Mr. Ken, you will take the question and answers, right? The Q&A for both panels. Thank you.
You're out of this world. Thank you very much to that very excellent panel. Joyce, it was indeed the best panel. And a major reason they say it was the best panel is because the gender factor was satisfactorily handled on that panel. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are coasting to the conclusion now. We are very shortly going to have the gentleman and lady who have been drafting the resolutions and the communique step up and read it to us. It's a short one, I believe. They are almost ready. They have asked me to give them 5 minutes. So in those 5 minutes, I'm going to take 3 questions or comments, preferably comments from the audience. Somebody put up his hand earlier. In the first session, Barrister Inuru Wills. Yes, he put up his hand first. Very first session, and I asked him to hold on. So Inuru would take the floor first. Oh, wow. Where do we start from? Okay. So Inuru first, but it has to be a minute. If we must leave here, 1 minute. I see Professor Mbalisi and the lady beside you, and Nana Wafo and the gentleman there. And then I see you at the very back there. We'll just take 1 minute each, yeah? Who is helping with the microphone? Yes, thank you. 1 minute.
Okay, so first for me is the accountability issue, which has been repeated by a number of our speakers. How do we hold people to account and institutions? And I think that this needs to be a major agenda, a work agenda for civil society, to and actually have targets. So let me give one quick example. The Bayelsa State Soil and Environmental Commission, 4 years of eminent experts working to produce excellent reports, and it's now in the state government. So part of the agenda, working agenda of civil society has to be how to hold their feet to the fire to say this needs to be implemented. Why have we not implemented it? For 4 years, we had a president from the Niger, and the UNEP report was there, and it was not implemented. So part of the agenda of civil society at this time has to be, beyond conferencing and so which is still important, has to be, what are the day-to-day steps that we need to guess, we need to undertake to ensure that the president implements this report. So that's one. Two, quickly, is Latin Paracen sort of touched on it. We need to do an economic evaluation of our environment. Botswana and some countries have the environment and natural resources as part of their gross national product. And I think it would be a good way, and I wish that's why I raised my hand in the morning. I wish the Ford Foundation people and so on were here. But what project that perhaps needs to be thought through and put forward is how do we do an environmental accounting and start to frame the environment from economic lenses. So that way, because as we all know, government is really interested in just the money, the cash. We need to frame the environment from an economic dimension and put a value on it. So if you're destroying the environment, which is X, Y, billion dollar value, and 20, 40, 50% of our gross national product, it means you're bringing down our gross national product. Finally, is talking about, and this is just the element. So talking about inconsistencies in our law.
Hold on, guys, hold on.
56, 57, whatever laws. In the age of AI, I'm not a very tech-savvy person or anything like that, but in the age of AI, where everything, there's what God cannot do does not exist. But it looks like next to that is what AI cannot do does not exist. So, in the age of AI, can we find a way of tracking, AI-assisted tracking of all the disconnects between the various laws to do with the environment? And then we now have a program of action for how to synthesize or harmonize it. Those are my 3 calls to action.
Thank you so much, Inuru. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope those documenting the resolutions and the observations are noting that the subject matter of accountability is powerful, and how we manage the multiple legislations. Thank you so much. Professor Mbalisi, 1 minute. I will be strict. You are not an environmental lawyer, so I'll be strict.
My own is an opinion. And when one of the speakers was talking in the morning, he said that we have to make younger people to also be involved or take care of the conversation that will affect them or that concerns them. And I believe that part of the ways to get them involved is to mount it as a program in the university. that program as versus the program. The University of Abuja, the University of Port the University of Calabar, and the Modi Boadama Federal University, Yola. You can see how important it is. So how are we going to get a lot of young people that will involved in this discussion? So I want to suggest that it is in the DMAS of NUC, where Professor has called for that in the morning, is a program in the NUC minimum benchmark. It's also in the CC mass, but enough for the university to float this program. Is there any way NUC can be made to make it a compulsory program in all the public universities?
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you. Thank you. That basically reiterates the point earlier made in the morning by Professor Karisi, the need for us to mainstream environmental education into the university curriculum. Yes, ma. 1 minute. Thank you very much. Thank you for also being timely. The need to build resilience and capacity for adaptation, especially for frontline communities. Thank you. Nana. Nana, just pass the microphone to another person and see.
Talked about it, so that by the time we come for the third convergence again, then we will see how far government has done to the areas that they have promised to commit in this discussion. So it's key that in the going forward, in the other conversation, regulatory agencies, government bodies, people that we need to extract a commitment will have to be in this engagement so that we can follow them up on the areas discussed in this conversation. And then finally, the issue of building community mass movement is actually very key. And the part of what we are going to take home as part of this conference is to see how we are going to build the resilience of the community people, build their capacity so that we can have a mass movement of people in the community that are begin to advocate for their issues as regards to climate change. Like other speakers I just said, will be at the background, supporting them with information, supporting them with the technical know-how to ensure that we bring their issues to the front burner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana Wafo. Thank you. Yes, there. And after him, we take the last one.
Very good afternoon to you all. Let me join my voice to commend and congratulate the organizers of this very wonderful program. My intervention is around leadership accountability. Leadership accountability. All of us who are in this country, when there's a very loud protest around environmental degradation, environmental exploitation, and all manner of injustices being done to the people of Niger Delta. And the government of Olusegun Obasanjo, in their wisdom, created what we call NDDC. And to our greatest surprise, NDDC have not bothered to live up to the expectations of the people of Niger Delta. It was turned into ATM to the elites and to leaders of the Niger Delta. And today, as we speak, we are still hovering around lamentations, no way forward. So we begin to ask, what is actually the problem? And the obvious deduction is that we are the problems of the Niger Delta. The Niger Deltas are the problem of Niger Delta. As if that was not enough, the problem of the government of President Umaru Yar'Adua, created a full-fledged ministry for the Niger Delta to ameliorate and address all the numerous challenges that is bedeviling the Niger Delta. And as we speak, nothing seems to be happening. So you begin to wonder. So much as I congratulate and commend the organizers of this program, I think we should go a step further to interrogate, constructively interrogate all those who have held the leadership of the intervention agencies. They are still alive. We know them. So what have happened to the government interventions in terms of resources, in terms of the trillions of billions of naira invested in NDCC? What are the money? And then you begin to wonder. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I went through the budget allocation to NDCC that ran trillions of naira, and at the end of the day, you discover that not even a single of those projects was executed. And we're out here. The lists are there. The CSOs are there in Niger Delta, and nobody was prosecuted. Nobody was arrested or prosecuted as we speak today. So please, much as we continue to do our best, I think we need to do a step further to ensure that people are held accountable for what belongs to the development of Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's a solid point. To make it more national, let the commentary takers please include not just the funding of the NDDC, but also the ecological fund which all the states get. It runs into billions of naira and has been going on for decades, and it's hardly ever accounted for. Thank you so much for raising that point. There's a gentleman seated on a wheelchair there. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the organizers for this workshop, and I am happy to be part of this experience and knowledge. Mine is an observation because I can see somebody with visual impairment. So I want to send this message to the organizers that when organizing a program of this nature, they should think about inclusion, because the discussion is not going to end here, even though if there is no person with a hearing impairment in this hall, the discussion will go out of here, and they will also want to understand what is being discussed. So next we organize a program of this nature, you think of inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please permit me to be the only favor I ask of this room till I go back home, to just allow 1 minute comment to someone who is an expert and traveled far to this conversation. He has a word to share for a minute, and we'll let Dr. Emmanuel Akpanabong speak. He's a leader of the Ibibio Elders Forum. Please do let him have a word. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for
He told me he needed only 1 minute.
Special honor. I bring you greetings from Ibibio people of Akwa Ibom State. I want to say that when I was coming for this conference, I discussed with the Oku Ibom Ibibio, the Chairman Traditional Rulers Council, and he was particularly interested in this matter and says, as soon as I come back, I should cause him to arrange a meeting where the outcome of this meeting will be shared with traditional rulers. I think this is important so that we find a way to penetrate the leadership at that level. We've been talking about difficulties in accessing people in government to buy into what we are doing. And I want to say that wherever and whenever we have an opportunity to inject, look at the contributions from our royal father here. If we can have more of such people, we will go a long way. Elected people in government come and go, but the custodian of the community legacies are there. I also want to use this opportunity to thank everybody for collaborating with the convener of this Convergence, Nimo Basi, who's my brother. He's a highly valued person for us in my community. And those of you who have known him, maybe have known him at his adult stage, but right from childhood, he's a special child in our community. You see, in my village, in the 70s, seven of us are well celebrated. Why? Because in the early 70s, mid-70s, late 70s, we all passed our school certificate with distinctions. And, but even though some of us passed with distinction, Nimmo beat all of us because he had aggregate 6 and had A1 in all the 9 subjects. So you can imagine that what we are seeing today is not new. That also means that even as we're thinking about the next generation, if we can cultivate people with their creativities, we can do a lot. A few days ago, I told him that my 3rd son, a medical doctor, was appointed by the chairman of my local government as his special assistant on health and environment. And my son came and said, Daddy, I have seen a lot of things laid down on immunization, care for pregnant women, reducing infant and maternal mortality. But in the aspect of environment, there is nothing at all in the local government. I said, okay, that's fine. That's a project for you. And good enough, Nimo Basi, as a member of that community, and myself, will construct something to make that local government be a pilot local government on environmental matters.
Thank you so much.
So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you also for the history. Now we know where the passion comes from. Thank you so much. Is the communique ready? Prof, you know that we have it in NDAC. We have it in NDAC, NDAC. We have it in NDAC. Yeah. So Professor Lokia Caruso was asking about the 2022 or 21 forensic audit of the Niger Delta that revealed massive malfeasance, corruption. That report was buried. We have not seen it. He was asking if we shouldn't demand for it. I was just telling him that we have another process called the Niger Delta Alternatives Convergence, and that is a core demand in that particular setup. So let's not burden that's a Niger Delta problem. We'll fight it our Niger Delta way. Is the communique ready? Yes, please. If you want to step up, or you want to, is that okay? It feels good from here, you know. Gentlemen, please let me call on Comrade Jaye Gaskia, who is leading the communique and resolution process. Comrade Gaskia. Where you are is fine.
Trust me that I want to say some things. Yes, which is why one of the reasons why I gladly, when I was co-opted, gladly accepted. And it's just because after this now we are going, and then we'll come back maybe tomorrow and the rest of that. It's just to summarize a few things. So the first thing for me is that and I think it's coming out clearly, is that when we talk about ecological audit, that it should be generalized to the ecological audit of all ecosystems in Nigeria, so that it's not specific to just one location. The second thing from our conversation is that natural resource governance is a key issue here. But natural resources are actually found in the vicinity and neighborhood of communities. So therefore, natural resource governance is really about community governance. And unless we address the questions of the gaps, the disempowerment of communities, the way communities have been deformalized, so that in the past, when they measure where the flood level is, they take action because they are a government. Now they can't take action because they are no longer a government. So unless we address community governance that way. The very significant point that was noted about when we talk about diversity, and we talk about inclusion, and so we talk about all the categories, so people with disability, for instance, young persons, for instance, women, for instance, but to just also understand that none of these groups is actually homogeneous, and that we cannot treat them as homogeneous groups because there will be some of them that actually have the wherewithal to survive. The question about early warning and early response, again, ties back to community governance. If communities have no way of ensuring their formal governance so that they can take decisions and act on it as a government, and they don't depend on the local government or an agency of the state government, it will be difficult for communities to actually enforce or to implement early response to any great degree. And then finally, that our conversations around the environment must increasingly become, must be undertaken within the context of political conversations, because it is in the arena of politics that these solutions are then going to be implemented. But if we don't have those conversations within that, within those arena, it will be difficult, really, for us to get that done. Now that I've had my chance to speak, I can then allow the team that actually worked on it. All I did was just to look at it and make sure that it's okay. I can then allow them to read what they wrote. Of course, I've looked at it, so if there are gaps, the gaps are also mine. So, okay.
Communique issued at the end of the Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternatives Convergence held at Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Center, Abuja on Monday, 14 July 2025. Background: Health of Mother Earth Foundation, with support from FAR Foundation and in collaboration with Environmental Rights Action / Friends of the Earth Nigeria, Kebekache Women Development and Resource Center, Social Action, Oil Watch Nigeria, and We the People, organized the one-day National Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternatives Convergence in Abuja, Nigeria. The convergence sought to create a platform for stakeholders from government, civil society, academia, and the private sector, social movement, women and youth organizations, and persons with disabilities, and communities to share knowledge and engage in meaningful dialogue and partnership
on the overarching ecological issues and social challenges affecting Nigerian communities, in order to chart a way forward and provide useful recommendations that will improve policy and provide a roadmap for sustainable policy solution to this crisis. The Convergence had international delegations from several African countries and the US. The participation of international activists and social movement groups from various African countries demonstrate the collective concern that ecological issues in African countries require solidarity, partnership, and collaboration in tackling them. The Convergent African countries require solidarity, partnership, and collaboration in tackling them. The Convergence featured a welcome statement, a keynote address, solidarity messages, technical review session on the Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternative Charter, panel discussions on issues such as combating peculiar challenges, including pollution, oceanification, desertification, erosion, and flooding, climate change, underlying issues and nexus around exploration and exploitation of solid minerals, oil and gas, agriculture, conflict, and insecurity, etc. There were also a general question and answer session which enabled participants to make useful inputs and contributions on the issues emanating from the keynote and technical sessions and ultimately ideate solutions to the identified challenges. Observations. The following robust engagement on topical issues raised at the Convergence, participants made the following observations. That Nigeria faces a litany of ecological challenges as a result of aggressive oil and gas extraction, mining, and unsustainable deforestation. And despite all these challenges, government at all levels in Nigeria have done very little to address them, to ameliorate the suffering and life-threatening ecological and climate realities associated with them. There is an intersection between the myriads of ecological issues facing the country and social issues such as poverty, conflict, and insecurity. The lack of resource democracy, communities are not consulted as right holders in the ongoing wave of divestment and ecological protection and climate change mitigation programs. Corporations are not held accountable for the decommissioning of abandoned oil wells and mining sites. That the complex and delicate interplay within the environment has been ignored in the quest for increased revenue by government and corporate interests, essentially making the environment a pawn. That Nigeria's socio-ecological challenges is exacerbated by the lack of political will, exclusion and limited participation, short-term thinking and lack of foresight, and not accounting for structural deficit and lack of integration and coordination. That Nigeria has several policies and long-term development plans that has intersection with climate change and the environment. The many environmental and climate change policies are inadequate to address socio-ecological challenges as they are not smart and are usually lacking cross-cutting themes like gender and social inclusion. There is a disconnect between national and subnational policies due to exclusion and blind spots in formulation. That varying priorities, conflicting regulatory frameworks, misaligned targets, and contradictory provision are visible gaps impeding the implementation of national climate and environmental policies. Demands. The following are the demands made by participants at the Convergence. To address drought and desertification, the government must aggressively pursue afforestation and reforestation initiatives, environmentally sustainable land management, and supporting community adaptation strategies. Wetlands must be protected, implementation of flood control infrastructure, and responding to climate change by reducing fossil fuel footprint to control flooding. To reduce impacts of mining operations in the country must enforce mining regulations, seek the free, prior, and informed consent of affected indigenous people, decommissioning of mining sites, and declaration of no mining zones. To mitigate the brunt on the Niger Delta people due to oil and gas extraction, an ecological audit of the region must be conducted, communities centered in ongoing divestment wave, and to end gas flaring and entrench effective response mechanism to respond to fossil-induced disasters and emergencies. Job transitioning, environmental remediation, adequate compensation, inclusion, and improving access to clean energy must be core facets of the implementation of the energy transition policy. The government must protect reserve areas, increase support for smallholder farmers, encourage the transition to agroecology, and adopt the precautionary principle with regard to GMOs to promote biodiversity conservation and ecosystem restoration. that the country must assign personality and value to critical environmental assets and improve our handling of this environmental asset as examples of Ecuador, Bolivia, Ethiopia, and South Africa have typified. Recommendations. The Convergence made the following recommendations: to improve the implementation of legal frameworks and regulatory policies for managing Nigeria's environmental and socio-ecological challenges and attract investment and environmental finance, the government must foster stakeholder coordination and inclusivity in policy implementation. That the government must practice resource democracy by including communities in responding to environmental problems through the inclusion of local environmental knowledge systems and traditional management practices and conservation models in addressing biodiversity crisis and climate change crisis. That climate change mitigation programs and policies should reflect the ecological diversity of Nigeria for efficacy. That governments should stop the financialization of nature by stopping the investment in false solutions and false climate change and biodiversity programs and policies that are not working for the people. That government should be accountable in addressing the climate crisis and desist from using it as an avenue for disaster profiteering. The Convergence also recommended for social inclusion and gender equality in climate change mitigation and an ecological protection because climate change affects and impacts communities in different ways, making the impact unique to each group. The Convergence also recommended for an ecological audit of Nigeria to properly ascertain and determine a holistic account of all natural resources available in each of Nigeria's ecological zones. The Convergence also recommended for capacity building, knowledge development through research, gender equality, and in social inclusion in tackling climate change and ecological challenges. It also called on all stakeholders to rebuild the social movement landscape through grassroots, community mobilization and movement building, inclusion and participation of local communities. Conclusion. The Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternatives Convergence provided a robust platform for civil society actors and other stakeholders to dialogue on the myriad of ecological issues affecting Nigerian communities as a result of unsustainable extraction of natural resources in Nigeria. Being the second in the annual series of civic engagement, the Convergence provided a platform to re-examine Nigeria's ecological challenges in the context of the global polycrisis and its adverse impact on Nigerian communities. The Convergence also reviewed the Charter of Demand issued at the maiden edition of the Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternatives Convergence. The Nigeria Socio-Ecological Convergence was an opportunity for multi-stakeholder introspection and the development of a strategic pathway to influence national policy action towards improving the socio-ecological lot of Nigerians.
That was a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you to that four-person panel. Do you have any additions to make to that? Okay, so we have Professor Karuse with a suggestion to add to the recommendations or the resolutions. Please, microphone.
Introducing knowledge or education of the environment in our various institutions. I think that's just all. You just craft it in a way you think.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Absolutely true. Yeah. Please take the microphone. Lawrence. Do we have any other? Betty Abba. Betty, do you have? Okay, please take the microphone to the back. After the cameras, go back. Betty, do you want to stand?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the issue of the inclusion of persons with disabilities, young persons, and other vulnerable groups needs to be more emphasized.
Exactly, I agree. Inclusion was mentioned for women, but not for other vulnerable groups. So please, that needs to be strengthened. And we'll take, okay, there's Inuru Wills.
Thank you. This is just to sneak in something either for inclusion or for consideration. So, Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternatives Convergence. Excellent. But it's occurring to me, can we change that A to accountability? Nigeria Socio-Ecological Accountability Convergence. Food for thought. Thank you.
It's actually brilliant. I think it's actually brilliant. I think that's for consideration in the next planning, yes. Good thing we have not put this name in copyright yet. Yeah, so that's the final one.
Final one, please. Please, I think it's appropriate with thinker with the idea of leadership accountability. Leadership accountability. If there is no sanctions, there will be no deterrence to crimes. Thank you so much.
Okay. So in the overall text, please emphasize accountability. Yeah. It's in the charter. Accountability is in the charter. We will just emphasize that. Yeah, of course. Accountability includes consequences. Okay. Please, let's fine-tune that. Just to say that this communique, it sounded very nice to me. It's a clean copy. It's a good one. It will just be fine-tuned, and the issues raised, including that by Professor Karose, will be integrated, and that document will be shared by email by tomorrow to everyone. Is that okay? And we'll also release it to the media tomorrow because it's pretty much ready. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end. Were you that tired? We have come to an end, but I think that today has been, please sit down, we're not done yet. Hold on, I think people are rushing to go and queue for food first. Please don't do that. I think it has been a very, very productive conversation. And I think we've had some very solid resolutions here. Ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to call on Dr. Nemo Bassi, the convener, the executive director of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation, to give us the closing words and also give us what the next steps are for this convergence. Thank you very much.
What a day it has been. Congratulations, Nigerians. Give yourself a big hand, somebody. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's been a very productive day, and I must congratulate everyone for being so patient and for staying through the day. I know if we needed to go for another 1 hour, you all be here. But we are not doing that. I'm sorry to disappoint you. We have to close it at this time. And so, standing on all protocol, let me thank very specially our Royal Father, the professors, the keynote speaker, all the chiefs in the house, all the comrades in the house. You have done so well. And I want to thank also the communique drafting, resolution drafting committee. That is it's a rare moment to have a communique read, and it sounds so perfect. Please give them a big hand. When I say give them a big hand, what they should do is to give you a big hand like this. A big hand. Okay, a few things. Now, I want to assure you that in 2026, we're going to have the National Nigeria Socio-Ecological Alternative Convergence number 3. Now, we are so sure that it's going to happen because we have very good partners who are supporting this effort. And so, okay, thank you for clapping. I'm saying thank you to Ford Foundation. Thank you for ETF, the Energy Transition Fund. And, you know, we have other partners in the room, and I want to appreciate them, also the Grassroots International, as well as Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. Now, so next year, we are sure to have the 3rd edition, and who knows when the African Continental Edition is going to come. That may be sooner than we can imagine. Now, inclusion has been I want to thank that brother who brought up the inclusion issue. From the next convergence, we'll make sure this is a central consideration. We'll have people here who would be able to give those who are certain kind of, who are differently abled to be able to follow the conversation fully. So that is taken on board. And then we're going to have, it's a national convergence. When we go back, we'll have a, Comrade Nana mentioned the fact that we should all commit to do something. And what we can do is to take the NSAC charter and hold meetings in our communities. When I say communities, it's not just the villages. Your community of activity could be your office, could be your school, it could be wherever you are, your church, your mosque, wherever. Use that document as an educational document to begin conversations, to popularize the content, and also for policy advocacy. So that is a commitment that we need to all make and to take up individually. Centrally, I can assure you that the conveners would work on what Comrade Inuro Wills raised, the issue of ensuring that those who should implement the Bayelsa State Oil and Environment Commission report actually begin to do so. And also to hold those who cause all the pollution in the region, or to hold them accountable by all means that are legal. Not just necessary, but legal. Yes, and one of the things that I really believe, I think this came from Comrade Patterson, about, I believe I'm right, natural resources as community governance issues. No, this was from Jaye Gaskia, right. And I believe that that's a plank on which we should further our campaigns on the issue raised. So what am I saying? There are some things for us to do as conveners of NSAC, but there are things for all of us to do as participants in this journey. Because we want to see a Nigeria in which the environment does not kill the people. We want to see a Nigeria in which an environment promotes our well-being as well as our wellness, in which being an important person in the country would not be measured by how much money you have, but by how much you love one another, by how much you love Mother Earth, and by how much you stand out as part of nature, not apart from nature. So I want to thank you very much for being here. Those are the charges that we have. Please enjoy the rest of the day. Take somebody's number, call them when you have time. Where is Ken Henshaw? Thank you so much for ably piloting this affair.
Okay, it's time to use the yellow card now. So you have used the blue one. Please check your folder, get the yellow card. It's your access to lunch. Have fantastic lunch and have the exact same arrangement as tea break. Thank you very much.
Just to drop. To do what? No,